Government spends more than 50 cents in every dollar on transfers and subsidies. Since Minister of Finance, Cole Mimber delivered his first fiscal package in October 2015, the government has spent, or allocated to spend, approximately $476 billion in the 9 fiscal years to 2024. Transfers and subsidies usually command a majority of government expenditure, with Sunday Business Guardian estimates putting the total spending on that allocation amounting to an estimated $252 billion between the 2016 and 2024 fiscal years. Generally, transfers and subsidies account for more than half of all the money spent by the government in a fiscal year. In the 2023 fiscal year, according to the provisional numbers in the 2023 review of the economy budget document, the government spent a total of $57.23 billion, $32.63 billion allocated to transfers and subsidies. That is 57% of the total expenditure. In the 2022 fiscal year, 56.44% of the total budget was spent on transfer and subsidies, $30.07 billion out of $53.27 billion. And in 2021, $26.87 billion was spent on transfers and subsidies, which was 54.17% of the $49.61 billion spent in that year. 54% of the transfers to households is the largest annual transfer cost for the government. Transfers to households include several key social programs. According to the 2022 review of the economy, some programs that fall under this item are pensions and gratuities, senior citizens grant, social assistance, disability grant, and the food price support program. Another significant program listed under this item is the Government Assistance for Tuition Expenses, GATE. Recommended for you. 04030, 1995 GP. The year 2020 indeed marked a year during which when transfer to households saw a significant jump as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. The review stated, transfers to households, $10.24 billion, represent the largest share of expenditure under transfers and subsidies. The 9% increase of $849.5 million as compared to fiscal 2019 is mainly attributed to higher than anticipated expenditure consequent to the government's socioeconomic response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Specifically, increases were recorded under the senior citizens grants from $3.84 billion to $4.06 billion, disability grants from $565.7 million to $610.0 million, social assistance from $356.9 million to $514.0 million, food price support program from $153.1 million to $314.6 million, and salary relief grants amounting to $226.3 million. However, there have been moves to reduce this amount over time, and indeed in 2021 there was a decrease, as the review said, in fiscal 2021 and are estimated at $9,836.7 million, $250.4 million lower than the previous year's total of $10,087.1 million. However, that review did note, this decrease in expenditure largely reflects the reclassification of items previously recorded in this category. The item did rise again in 2022, as the Economic Review stated. Transfers to households, which includes payments for pensions and gratuities, senior citizens grant, social assistance, disability grant, the food price support program, and COVID-19 support, represents 34.3% of total transfers and subsidies, and are estimated to have increased by 7.9% to $10.45 billion in fiscal 2022, a $762.8 million increase from $9.69 billion spent in fiscal 2021. This can be attributed mainly to spending under the GATE fund of $400.0 million and an increase in the subsidy liability relating to the sale of petroleum products. Economist Dr. Valmiki Arjun noted that most of these items did have significant impacts on the day-to-day cost of living in the country. Using the food price support program as an example, he noted that this had been a major help for several homes around the country. It helps them to cope more with an increased cost of living, especially increased cost of food. Food items, on average, prices would have gone up by about 30.4% from July 2019 to July this year, Dr. Arjun told the Business Guardian in a telephone interview. Given the higher cost of food items, it would not have been able to purchase the same basket of groceries as it would have been able to a few years ago, especially pre-pandemic. He also pointed out that a reduction to the GATE allocation and the subsequent addition of a means test to qualify for assistance has already changed the outlook for several families, as many students are opting not to pursue tertiary education, but instead to enter the workforce. This, he explained, often meant they were accepting jobs at lower levels than their potential, or, in some cases, in the alternative job market. Dr. Arjun and another economist, Dr. Marlene Etz, both said it was difficult to state what the cost of living would be with, or without the items given the many categories it would cover. Etz explained that transfers and subsidies are implemented in various sectors, and as a result tying it back to a per capita cost could not be accurately interpreted. However, Arjun noted that typically the major focus of the budget is on subsidies. Typically, transfers are the larger expense. Indeed, a review of the financial documents for the past decade comfortably supported this, as typically subsidies accounted for about 1% of the transfers and subsidies allocation. However, subsidized costs have consistently been addressed in the past decade, notably with adjustments to the fuel subsidy 6 times. This, Dr. Arjun noted, directly impacted the average citizens as transport costs, both via private vehicles and public transport, increased as a result. However, additionally, he said that adjustment also had the added effect of price increases on items, as businesses also saw increased costs for the transportation of goods. Another example of subsidy adjustment impacting the public was seen in inter-island transport, as both ferry and airplane tickets were adjusted upward in the 2023 budget. Still, amid great concerns about the declining energy returns, there remain calls for further adjustments or removals of subsidies in the budget. On Wednesday, while speaking at the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Services Industries, TTCSI, pre-budget discussion at the Little Carib Theatre in Port of Spain, the head of the Energy Chamber, Dr. Dax Driver, once again made a call for removal of the subsidy for electricity rates in Trinidad and Tobago. "We have to remove the subsidy on electricity in the country," said Dr. Driver at the event. "We're putting incredibly cheap natural gas into the electricity sector, which we could be earning a lot more foreign exchange if we put it into petrochemical and LNG sectors," he said. "Leave the subsidies in place for the poorest households, but better-off households in the top tariff levels do not need an electricity subsidy, and commercial businesses should be paying the market rate for electricity." Driver said the removal may not necessarily mean increased rates for the public, particularly if more emphasis is placed on reduced energy consumption drives, as he estimated that TNT could reduce its usage by 40% with the right adjustments. Additionally, he said the removal of the electricity subsidy would aid the necessary push for renewable energy in the country.